Okay, return on investment. And return on investment is the rate of return normalized by the initial investment, and this is the profitability of the project. So if you look at a project that you initially invest $100,000 and generates an average return of $20,000 per year, basically you do the $20,000 divided by the $100,000 and you've got a return on investment of 20%. So that one you may have to calculate, so make sure that you understand that that is the average return per year divided by the initial investment. And here, the higher the return on investment, the more profitable the project is. So expect some math questions, and of course they won't let you take in a calculator, but there will be some kind of a calculator device, either incorporated with the test taking, or they'll give you like a 10 key or something off to the side. But basically they don't want you to have things programmed in there, so you can't bring in your own calculator. But at any rate, so the higher the ROI, the more profitable the project is. Okay, next is opportunity cost, last but not least. So the opportunity cost is the next best choice. So only one other choice. So if you had 5 different projects, the opportunity cost isn't, and you can only pick one, it's not the 4 you didn't pick, it's just the 1 you didn't pick. So if you have...
Sorry, this one I don't remember. Opportunity is the cost related to the next best choice available after choosing from among several. There's an
yeah, so assuming that these are all exclusive choices, so if you had the choice of 5 different projects, it's only the next best one. So if you had projects that had net present values of 100 and 90 and 80 and 70 and 60, you don't add up that 90 and 80 and 70 and 60 and say, okay, the opportunity cost of the project that I'm doing for 100 is all those other guys put together. It's only the next best one. So say the opportunity cost of going to college is, not just, it's just, say, if the next best opportunity was getting a job. It's not getting a job, or, if getting married was mutually exclusive to going to college, it's not that, or, hiking the, the Santiago de Compostela trail or something. It's not all of those opportunities, it's just the one next best opportunity. So, and here, obviously, bigger is better. So if project A has a net present value of $55,000 and project B has a net present value of $85,000, then the net present value of taking project B, because you want to take B because that's the higher one, but the opportunity cost of B is the cost of A, which is $55,000.
Okay. All right. So you don't necessarily. Okay. So it's the lesser of the two. If you choose B, you know that the opportunity cost is the A.
Right. 55%. But if there were 2 other options besides A and B that had a lower net present value than A did, you just disregard those. It's only just the one.
Oh, okay.
So the opportunity cost is just the one next best opportunity.
Okay. All right.
Okay, and so moving right along, we have the project integration management area. And again, as we've said, this spans all of the project management process groups. And there's like a little bit of a typo there, but we'll just disregard that. But basically, it has processes in all 5 of the groups. So again, because it is the spine that really takes care of the whole project. So we're going to talk about those processes now in detail. So first we're going to develop the project charter, and here's our ITTO diagram. So all of our inputs are along the left-hand side. Can you see my little hand over here pointing?
I can.
Okay. So these are all of our inputs. We've got the benefit management plan. Remember, we talked about how we might choose benefits. We've got the business case. We've got any agreements that we might have in place. Maybe we have some permanent subcontractors that we always use, and we have them on retainer. And then we've got our EEFs, which are external factors, and we've got our OPAs, which are our internal factors. And then we've got our process. So this is one of our 49 processes, which is for the Project Integration Management Knowledge Group. It's called Develop Project Charter. And we've got our tools and techniques that we use to develop the project charter. So that includes our expert judgment, data gathering, meetings, and interpersonal and team skills. And our output is the project charter assumption log. So I don't know if you can see, on the legend, basically the blue is the inputs and the greenish is the outputs. And the pinkish are the tools and techniques, and then the gold is the name. And because it's in gold, it's part of the initiating process group.
The inputs of the business management plan, the business case, agreements, enterprise, environmental factors, organizational process assets. And this is what plays the process, the expert judgment, data gathering, meetings, interpersonal and team skills to produce the project charter assumption log.
Right. So there's your, your I and your TT and your O right there.
Okay.
Okay, so what do we do to develop our project charter? Okay, this is the first opportunity for the project manager to understand the vision and goals of the project as agreed to by the sponsor and stakeholders. So this is what the project charter contains: project purpose and scope, authorizes the project and the project manager. So the project manager may or may not actually develop the project charter, but should definitely be intimately familiar with the project charter. And we've got the business problem, we've got measurable objectives, the boundaries, the risks, the critical factors to success, the stakeholder list and roles, responsibilities. So stakeholders are identified very early on and brought into the project. Assumptions and constraints, and again, those are key to just about any process, is understanding the assumptions and constraints. And then what is the project exit criteria? We talked a little bit about the phase gates, what might stop us from continuing this project, and what actually says we've successfully completed the project. And then the project charter needs to be approved by the project sponsor. So as you said, needs to be signed, and again, is pretty much set in stone. You really need to go through a formal change process, and as you said, in your corporate world, an addendum to change that project's charter. So we've got the initial scope statement, and the initial scope statement is the first step in the process. So we try to answer these questions about the problem or opportunity, the goals and objectives, the work activities, what is the characterization of success, and how will it be measured? Again, the project manager's viewpoint, what obstacles might impede our outcome, and how do I get them out of the way of the team? Again, we need the roles and responsibilities, the unanswered questions that are affecting the vision, the cost benefit or return on investment analysis, because if if the cost benefit goes, or the benefit cost goes below 1, would that be an exit? Do we want to say, okay, exit here? And look at our return on investment. Again, we might want to estimate our internal rate of return and look at the project resource requirements. So we want to develop our project management plan, and basically this is the outline for the rest of the document. So this contains the information, and the project management plan, as stated earlier, is input to most of the other planning, or maybe all of the other planning processes. And they are seen somewhat as subsidiary documents, but you probably don't want to have all the documents like communications and risk and everything in one document, because you revisit different things at different rates, and you don't want everything always out to edit, if you see what I'm saying. So the project management plan is a detailed document that talks about everything in the project, and then it has subsidiary plans, which we'll talk about in the other 9 knowledge areas. So if the initial agreed time for a project is 180 days or half a year, then it's the project baseline time value. So if the variance is 10%, that means, and usually the variance is always to the bad, that it's going to take longer, that it could be 198 days. So, because, the reality is we hardly ever get done under budget and ahead of schedule. Okay, so what are the contents of the project management plan? Well, these contain the 10 knowledge areas, as well as the 4 areas that don't really have a knowledge area. So we've got the project charter, we've got the approach or strategy, and then we've got scope, requirements, schedule, cost, quality, resource management, communications, risk, procurement, stakeholders, which are all knowledge areas. And then we've got change management, configuration management, scope baseline, and schedule baseline, which, and actually none of the rest of these have a knowledge area, but they are all tied into some of the other knowledge areas. And then we've got the schedule and the cost, because we always want to have baselines to measure against for our work performance data that goes to information that goes to reports. And then we have our life cycle description and our development approach. Okay, so next we want to develop the project management plan. So again, we have our ITTO diagram. And so our inputs are the project charter, inputs from other processes, our EEFs and our OPAs. We have the tools and techniques that we use to develop the project management plan, including expert judgment, data gathering, interpersonal and team skills, and meetings. The ever-present meetings, that's a lot in a lot of the processes. And what comes out of developed project management is the project management plan. So again, in terms of memorization, this is a pretty straightforward process because it's named very much like its output. So the project management plan comes out of developed project management plan, and that follows pretty directly. Okay, so some of the key terms here are the work authorization system. So what is it that provides a resource the ability to participate in a project? And this would be a formalized collection of procedures that says, is it a time card authorization? Is it some other kind of thing that says, okay, this person is authorized to do this amount of work on this project? Corrective action, and that's an intentional activity that realigns the performance of the project with the project management plan. So if you get off track, how are you going to make corrections? And a preventative action is something that ensures the future performance of the work is aligned with the project management plan. So corrective action, say you've already made a wrong turn and your navigation device is saying recalculating. So that's a corrective action. A preventative action might be engaging your navigation device early on and following its directions, or making sure that its directions can be followed, that say the off-ramp you wanted to use is not canceled. Okay, some more key terms are the change control system, and this is a set of procedures that describe how modifications to the deliverables and documentations are managed and controlled, and the configuration management system. Now these are big in terms of comparing and contrasting, so make sure you understand the difference between these two terms. And the configuration management system is the set of procedures used to apply technical and administrative direction and surveillance to identify and document the functional and physical characteristics of a product, service, result, or component. So change control is more the processes, and configuration is more the physical characteristics, to put it on a very high level. But make sure you understand the difference between those two. Okay, so next we want to direct and manage project work. And this is the process of leading and performing the work defined in the project management plan to achieve the project objectives. And again, this belongs to the executing process group, and because everything can't, be named really key to the process, this, you have to remember that if we've got an active verb, direct and manage, we're probably in the executing process group. So, and in fact, mostly when you have the word manage, you're in the executing process group. So we've got the inputs that are listed in blue over here, and then our tools and techniques to direct and manage our project work are again our expert judgment, our project management information systems, which is the whole scope of things that we use to monitor and amass the cost and schedule information and planning and scheduling and analysis. And then we've got a whole lot of outputs here. So obviously this is a heavy hitter for a project manager. We've got deliverables, we've got our work performance data, and remember that's going to go into information, and then finally reports. We've got our issue log, which is basically our action item list. You might call it that in your neck of the woods. We've got change requests. We've got project management plan updates. We've got project document updates. And we've got organizational process assets. And remember, the project document updates are the documents that aren't formally the knowledge areas. So any document that doesn't have a formal knowledge area is included in that project document updates. And here we might update our organizational process assets in terms of, say, giving somebody some training or something. So that would, change our capabilities.
Now, where would the training fall under?
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later in terms of resource management.
Okay.
So, okay, so more about direct and manage project work. We want to have team development and coordination because we want to make sure that everyone's working to the same set of documents, that the conflicts are being resolved, and that we have, say, short 5-minute meetings. And so this is, the short meeting is kind of an aspect of Agile that has been factored into this edition of the PMBOK. And of course, we want to interface with the stakeholders, and later we'll talk about the communications plan, the stakeholder engagement plan, the metrics, the progress reports, and the additional reporting. So that's why you probably want to go back and read this chapter again later, because you've got to start somewhere. And so, like I said, this is the spine, and then everything else kind of hangs off of this. So again, what we want to focus on is the project monitoring. So what did we mean to do, and what did we actually do? The quality management, and again, think of quality as conformance to requirements. The risk management, and remember, assumptions and constraints are some of your biggest heavy hitters in terms of risk. Your scope and product change management, so in other words, how do you keep on track without having, we talked about the inevitable scope creep, so we want a very well-defined change management process. In addition, we want to focus on facilitating meetings, because meetings are endemic to project management. And of course, we want to have performance reviews. These aren't actually the annual, yearly reviews that you might think of as performance reviews, when you sit down with an employee and say, how have you done during the year? But this is more, how is the work on the project going? And again, we want to follow the communications plan, the stakeholder engagement plan, because we've got to keep those stakeholders happy. And again, we want to document. So meetings and communications, and we'll talk about various kinds of formal, what should be formally and what should be informally documented later. And again, documenting the process, progress, and work performance, and then updating the project records. So as deliverables occur, we want to update those. So ultimately, if I say, oh, we're going to talk about something later, and you make a note, oh yeah, she's going to talk about this later, just say, hey, Kathy, you said you were going to talk about something later, and we got to later, and it never happened. So make sure that if there's anything you're particularly interested in, and I didn't get to it, but I really should, that we do talk about that. Okay, so during execution, project leadership is obviously a critical success factor. And the project manager must lead the project team and stakeholders, which is kind of an odd statement, because really the project team is also stakeholders. And in fact, the project manager is also a stakeholder, but they mean the rest of the stakeholders. So you've got, everybody who's a stakeholder and the other stakeholders in respect to the project. Again, as a project manager, your ability to lead the team is critical to success, and you need to provide leadership through each phase and keep the project on time, within budget, and make sure the milestones are met. So Leadership roles and skills include planning, organizing, coordinating, motivating, controlling, and directing as part of that process. Okay, so the next project is manage project knowledge. And again, this is part of the executing process group, and we can tell that from the manage word and the fact that it's an active verb for if you're a knowledge grammar person.